Hi there, so I really want you to watch all of this video and hear what I have to say. So here's the important bit first. On December 15th, Valve released a loot box with their new Frostivus update. These chests had a new system for the variants of unboxing items. This was hidden from the players, and Valve waited for the 48-hour window where the vast majority of keys were purchased and boxes opened to edit their original post and display the odds retroactively, to make it seem like they were there all along. The dates of these blog posts weren't changed in an attempt to make it seem like these odds were displayed from the very beginning. This was to deceive players and hide the actual odds of this chest from the customers when the vast majority of them were being opened. For more context and information, keep watching. I want to preface this by saying this isn't a video about chests being unfair or because I've not gotten what I wanted. In fact, I haven't opened a single one of these chests, and for some context, I've designed and shipped loot boxes in a game community before, and I think they have a place in gaming. So, for some context, Valve shipped an update to Dota 2 on the 15th of December last year. In this update was a chest. This chest contained mostly sets from previous years, a few new immortals, and a top tier being a cosmetic set for a Persona and an Arcana, which were previously only obtainable through the battle passes from the years before, so people who missed out on those originally were finally able to get these items, so they were in quite high demand. When a box was opened, there was a 1 in 300 chance of that item to be an unusual variant. We'll touch back on that in a second, but these items were grouped into tiers, tiers 1 through 4, and an extra rare courier item. You can trade up these items for the next tier, with 5 of the previous tier being awarded with a random item from the tier above. That's the context. Anyway, here's where the issues begin. So on December the 15th, Valve released their regular shiny patch notes the same day, and in-game they displayed the unusual odds. Here it would tell you that you had a 1 in 300 chance of an item you dropped to be an unusual, but seemingly nothing else. That's not specifically the issue I have here. So on that same day, they posted this. It's also worth noting that this is the blog post about the update. This isn't in the patch notes. This in itself is hidden away. This is the blog post containing all the information about the Frostivus update. Now, I read this the day it came out, and I've read it since, and I've noticed a really significant change. There's one part that's missing in its entirety. I haven't been able to get a copy of this page from the Wayback Machine or the Internet Archive, but I have found videos online people posted the day this update came out showing the blog post in its entirety. And you'll notice that a large section is missing from this page, which has since been added. Now that section is this, showing all of the Frostivus chest information. This is the information about the chest, including its drop chance of the items, for example, showing that unusual courier is a 1 in 100,000 chance. It also shows that each tier has a 10% chance to upgrade to the next tier. What that means can be difficult for some people to understand, which I think, again, is intentional. They're trying to make it difficult to understand what's going on here. So what that means in real terms is that tier 1 has a 90% drop chance. Tier 2 has a 9% drop chance, so that's about 1 in every 11 chests will be a Tier 2 item. Tier 3 has a 0.9% chance, that's 1 in every 110 chests approximately, and Tier 4 has a 0.09% chance, that's well over 1 in every 1,000, closer to 1 every 1,100 chests. When an update is released, the vast majority of purchases and sales of the keys and chests being opened is done in the first 36 to 48 hours, and that is visible through the Steam sale graphs on the Steam market, and it's very clear that the first 2 days are when the vast majority of chests are opened. Valve retroactively edited this blog post with the chest odds and left the date the same, so that once people had purchased all the keys they were going to buy, they then had the plausible deniability of saying we released the odds, they were clear, when they weren't clear the whole time. You could not find this information until days after the chests came out. And they have done this before. This is policy for Valve. This isn't a mistake. They need to put these numbers in the game. It's that simple. So some important context. The last Dietide chest, the tier 4, had a 0.64% chance to drop. That's 7 times higher than the Frostivus chest, and it's presented in an identical way. This, I think, is the crux of why a lot of this has happened. They've changed the way that this chest works compared to all of the recent Dota 2 chests. The amount of items you have to trade up for the next tier is much lower, but the chance of you getting any of these items from a straight drop is so much lower than before. So under this new system, the benefit is in purchasing a large quantity of keys and trading up for the item you want. Because the variance is so much lower, you are more likely to get a high tier item after opening a large amount of keys, whereas on the older system, there's a chance that you can open 300 keys and get absolutely nothing good. That's removed in this new situation, but that's not really a benefit. And in my experience designing these things, I know that's not what players want. And they know this, which is why they hid it and retroactively made it seem like they didn't. Okay, now onto the cosmetics themselves. On release, 3 items were missing their unusual variants from this set, which I mentioned before. Meaning, if you unboxed one of those 3 items, you didn't have a chance of getting the unusual variant of that item when you unboxed it. Valve later posted an update saying some of the items from the Frostivus chest were missing unusual variants. Those have been added. They have done this before in other updates as well. They make it seem like we forgot to add these, our bad, here you go. When in reality, it's just that the single guy working on these items over Christmas didn't crunch them quick enough to get them out. So they released the update anyway with these things missing, but telling you that you could get them. So players who weren't getting them would continue to open the chest trying to get the item they wanted, and they wouldn't get it because it wasn't possible. They told you could get something that wasn't there, and they knew it, and they frame it like it was just this mistake. Sorry, they were missing. It's fine if they're not there, but you have to communicate that. You can't tell people they are when they're not. The players were awarded unusuals of these items retroactively, but obviously there's no communication about how this was done, and even if it was tracked in the first place, or if these players were just randomly retroactively awarded those, we won't know, and there's no way to know, like all of this, which is why they need to be consistent and communicate, but they don't. There are many cosmetic item bugs with these brand new items which have yet to be addressed. They've been posted on their GitHub since they came out, and here's why that's concerning. There's no way to preview these items in game. You have to purchase them, which is hard in itself because out of laziness, Valve has not made separate item IDs for each of the 3 effects. 3 separate unusual effects: Candycaster, Snowdrift, and Frostbloom. Frostbloom is substantially more valuable and people want it far more, so because Valve has released the items this way, there's no way to search them effectively, and people are able to change the description and name of their items to make it seem like they have the more valuable unusual effect. And if people don't know this, it is very easy for them to get scammed. And it has been happening. It's been happening a lot. They haven't made separate market IDs for the 3 different effects. They've just bodged together some old system. They haven't even used their old gem system. They've just bodged together some particle system in the game with an unusual effect variant added as like a tag. It's not even a viewable gem on the item that you can change or remove or any of that stuff. It's just lazy. I had to make a YouTube video to display these items with their effects for people to view in-game before they purchased them, because they weren't available to view in-game, and even displaying them the way I did required so many steps to get them to load in the game, and there are so many issues with them. They either tested these and saw they were broken and didn't care and shipped them anyway. For example, the tiny tree is totally wrecked, it just shows a shadow. The Batrider item shows way more particles in the loadout than it does in game. The Pudge Hook loses its particles the second it's thrown. The Arc Warden item is the worst. It lags behind the hero terribly in game, to a point where it will give you away if you've gone a certain way through trees. The Cottle Staff doesn't show particles when charging as Q. These are brand new items, which were rushed out and thrown at players, and with Valve's history, they won't fix these bugs. They've made the sale, they'll move on to the next update. They've released a ward in this update, which was untargetable. If unlocked, this ward you could place in game. It wasn't possible to click on it. To de-ward it as an enemy, you had to A-click it, and plenty of players didn't know to do that because you don't have to do that for any other ward. They knew about this for a week and a half and didn't patch it. They didn't test it before it was released. It was a high tier unlock, so people didn't find out until just before Christmas. So it was live in the game for well over a week before it was patched and being used widely, which is fine, but it just shows the culture that they didn't test these bloody things, and they should have. Look, I love Dota 2. I love the cosmetic. It's great that they keep updating this game. At the end of the day, this isn't disgusting or disappointing. This is a corporation who's going to continue doing what they can get away with until somebody points this out and people don't put up with it anymore. When the facts are laid out in front of you clearly, anybody would say that it's crazy that they're doing this. Valve holds others to really high standards. They have a culture of misleading and gaslighting their customers. And I think this is happening due to pressure from the company to its employees to continue generating the extremely high benchmark for revenue that Dota has achieved in the past, with their battle passes consistently getting into the hundreds of millions of dollars each year. And with that revenue having fallen off significantly since then, it seems that they've resorted to these kind of tactics that are just unethical when it comes to editing their posts to make it seem like they're displaying these odds after players have already been misled and spent their money. They need to put these numbers in the game the moment they release these chests. And if parts are missing and they know they're missing, they need to communicate that when they're released. And when they're dropping items with a 1 in 100,000 chance, they need to put in the effort to stop players from being scammed on their community market. And fix my Frostbloom item bugs, please.
From the ghastly Eyrie, I can see to the ends of the world, and from this vantage point, I declare with utter certainty that this one is in the bag.